So you guys, this research you sent over about tech and family mealtime, seriously cool stuff. The title, The Struggle is a Part of the Experience, totally hooked me.
It's a bit of a head scratcher at first, right?
Yeah, not what you'd expect.
You think tech, you think making things easier,
Mm-hmm.
but this research dives into how those little tensions, those disagreements during family meals, those can be opportunities.
Okay, now that's interesting. Tell me more about this whole opportunity and disagreement thing. We're talking about actual families here, right?
18 families, to be exact,
Yeah.
all from the Midwest.
Mhm.
And they didn't hold back. We get to hear their stories, their struggles, straight from them.
Oh, I love when they have quotes. It's like you get a peek right into their lives. So 18 families, Midwestern U.S. And what was the big takeaway? What'd they learn?
Well, one of the things that really jumps out is just how many disagreements are happening at family meals.
Really? You'd think with all the effort that goes into making a meal happen, everyone would just be grateful.
You'd think.
Eh.
But it turns out those picture-perfect family dinners, not always so picture-perfect in reality.
You're telling me. I'm the oldest of four, so trust me, I know a thing or two about chaotic family dinners. But this paper, it takes those messy moments and says, hey, these are important for designers.
Yeah. It kind of flips the script, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We usually want tech to make things seamless, frictionless. But here, a little friction could be a good thing.
Okay, gotta admit, you've kicked my curiosity. So where do we even start with this whole disagreement as design inspiration thing?
Well, a good place to start is with the food itself.
Makes sense. You've got a table full of different tastes, different preferences, bound to be some culinary clashes.
Exactly. This research found disagreements everywhere. What to eat, who's cooking, how to use tech. The list goes on.
So let's dig into some specifics, shall we? Give me an example of one of these food fights.
All right, so picture this. The Spencer family, we've got Jane, the mom, and she is all about those healthy choices.
I can relate. I'm always trying to sneak more veggies into my family's meals. It's a constant battle.
Well, Jane feels you. She even said, and I quote, "I make it a huge point to make sure we never have a meal without vegetables. That's super important to me."
You can just hear the dedication in her voice. But I'm guessing it's not always easy.
It's a struggle, that's for sure. She talks about how time-consuming it is to make sure there are veggies on the table every single night. But it's important to her. You can just tell.
It's about more than just the vegetables themselves,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's about her values as a parent, wanting what's best for her kids. But then you've got Dave, her husband.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Sounds like we've got a difference of opinion brewing.
You could say that.
Ah.
Dave has a slightly different take on the whole healthy eating thing.
Let me guess, more of a let them eat cake kind of guy.
Not cake exactly, but he did say, and I quote, "I think that healthy eating is way less important for children and much more important for older folks." He even went on to say, "Kids are very versatile. They'll be fine. They can literally eat butter every single day for a year, and they would be fine."
Okay, gotta give Dave points for honesty. And maybe he has a point about the butter. I'm kidding. But seriously, that difference in their approaches, it highlights something really important that the researchers found.
Right. It's not just about a difference of opinion. It's about the emotional weight behind those choices. What seems like a simple debate about vegetables actually runs much deeper.
Okay, so we've talked about what's on the menu and those family food negotiations, but there's another layer to this whole mealtime thing, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Who's doing the cooking?
Yeah, who's actually making it all happen?
Exactly. And this research found some pretty interesting stuff there, too. Like, did they actually find a pattern with who's doing the cooking in these families?
Well, yeah, and it's kind of what you might expect, but it's still kind of striking when you see it laid out like this, you know?
Okay, what did they find?
So they looked at all these families, remember? 18 families total.
Right.
And in 15 out of those 18 families, it was the women who were doing most of the cooking.
Wow. 15 out of 18.
Yeah, pretty overwhelming, right?
Yeah, that's not super surprising, but it's still kind of a bummer to see it like that.
Right, and it gets to this whole thing about invisible labor.
Invisible labor.
Yeah, like it's not just the time spent actually cooking the food, but it's all the other stuff that goes along with it.
Oh, I totally get that. It's the planning and the shopping and then figuring out what everyone will actually eat.
Exactly. And then thinking about leftovers and packing lunches.
Yeah.
Like, it never ends.
It's like this whole mental load that just comes with the territory.
Exactly. And I think that really came through in Jen's story. Remember her?
Oh, yeah. Jen with the high-tech kitchen. She seems super on top of things.
Yeah. Well, even with her amazing kitchen, she was still juggling a ton. Like, she had a really demanding job.
Oh, wow. So she's working a full-time job and then coming home to do all the cooking.
Pretty much. And she talked about how she felt this pressure to make those family meals happen.
Like it was part of her role as a mom.
Exactly. And I think that's something a lot of women can relate to.
Yeah, for sure.
And it made me think back to what we were talking about earlier, like how those little disagreements, those discontents can actually reveal these deeper tensions.
Right, like what might seem like a simple thing on the surface is actually about something much bigger.
Exactly. And in this case, it's like that question of who's responsible for making family meals happen isn't just a logistical thing. It's tied to these larger societal expectations
Mm.
about gender roles and who does what in the home.
That's such a good point. It's like even with all the technology in the world, we can't just erase those deeper inequalities.
Exactly. Technology can play a role, for
Mhm.
sure, but it's not a magic solution.
So then how can tech actually help in these situations?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Because it seems like we need more than just a fancy new gadget to address these deeper issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where this research takes a really interesting turn. They actually had the families themselves come up with ideas
Yeah.
for how tech could improve their mealtime experiences.
Oh, that's so cool. I always wonder what would happen if you actually asked families what they wanted instead of just assuming.
Right, and the results were fascinating.
So tell me, did they come up with any life-changing inventions?
Well, you'll have to wait and see about that. But I can say that the families had some really creative and thoughtful ideas for how tech could make a difference.
Like what kinds of things?
Well, for starters, they didn't just focus on making things faster or more efficient.
Which is what I think a lot of tech tries to do.
Exactly.
Hey.
But these families, they were thinking about how tech could help them connect more as a family.
Okay, I like that. So it's not just about the food itself, but about the whole experience of sharing a meal together.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this research so valuable.
Yeah.
It reminds us that technology should be about more than just convenience or efficiency.
It should be about enhancing those human connections that really matter.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to dig into even more after the break. So we're back, and I have to hear more about this nothing else dilemma because it seems like a slippery slope, right?
Yeah, like where do you draw the line between tech that helps and tech that just takes over?
Exactly. And the researchers, they tell this really interesting story about a couple, Claude and Emma Jean,
Oh yeah, Emma Jean with the super high-tech kitchen.
the one and only.
Hmm.
So she's sketching out her ideal kitchen,
Yeah.
and it's basically every tech lover's dream.
Give me all the gadgets.
Right. Like a kitchen that can anticipate your every need, order your groceries, chop your veggies, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, I have to admit that sounds kind of tempting.
Right. But then you have Claude,
I'm sensing some hesitation from Claude.
and he says this line that really stuck with me. He says, struggle is a part of the experience.
Wow, okay, that's pretty profound.
Right. And it makes you think about all those little struggles we experience in the kitchen, like the burnt dinners and the spilled milk and the frantic searching for the right lid.
Been there. Usually with a toddler hanging off my leg at the same time.
Exactly. And Claude's point is that those messy moments, they're not just inconveniences. They're part of what makes cooking and eating together meaningful.
I like that. It's like those struggles are part of the recipe.
Exactly. And I think that's something that designers really need to keep in mind. Like, how do we create tech that supports those messy human experiences without erasing them altogether?
It's a tough balance to strike.
It is. And there's no easy answer. But I think it starts with really listening to families and understanding their values and their priorities. Because what might feel like a burden to one family might be a cherished ritual to another.
That's so true. And it's a good reminder that there's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to tech and family life.
Absolutely. So to all you tech innovators out there, listen up. Don't be afraid to embrace those messy moments, those disagreements, those anxieties, because that's where you're going to find the most interesting and impactful design opportunities.
It's like we always say, the best designs are the ones that solve real human problems, and sometimes the most human problems are the messiest ones.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive.
I know this has really given me a lot to think about, and I hope it's done the same for you, our listeners.
Me too. It's a good reminder that technology should be about more than just making our lives easier. It should be about helping us connect more deeply with the people we care about.
Absolutely. So whether you're a tech enthusiast, a design enthusiast, or just someone who enjoys a good meal with family and friends, we hope you found this deep dive both thought-provoking and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Hear, hear.
And remember, if you have any thoughts or questions about anything you've heard today, head over to our website or social media and share your insights. We love hearing from you.
Until next time, happy listening and happy eating.
See ya.